Hi, welcome back to the show today. I want to share some thoughts with you on your life sentence. No, I'm not talking about you being in prison or you've done something wrong, but I'm going to share some thoughts with you about what you're going to be known for at some point down the road. There's a word that some people throw around, not very many because it's an older word, but the word is complacency. Complacency is the word. It says, the actual definition says, a feeling of contentment, of self-satisfaction, especially when coupled with an unawareness of danger or trouble. How many people have you met that don't know that they're heading down the wrong road? That maybe they're heading toward, a speeding train and they're oblivious to it, even though there's other people around them that have been telling them for a long time that they're about to make a huge mistake. I think so many times you and I have a tendency to live life in the moment instead of considering what our actions are going to look like in the next 5 years, 10 years, 15, maybe 30, 40 years down the road. And that's nearly impossible for most young people because most young people, not all, but most people can't see past their own nose, meaning that they can't see the actions of what they're going to, what results of their actions are going to happen as a result of what they're going to do. I think you and I have a tendency, well, I can't speak for you. I know I have a tendency sometimes to forget about what impact my actions are going to look like tomorrow or the next day or maybe some point down the road. And I think that sometimes over the course of a lifetime, we forget what we're going to be known for, if we even care what we're going to be known for years down the road. In the Bible's full of stories about people with a very positive outlook on life and some people who didn't really care what was going on. And one text talks about St. Paul, and St. Paul said when he was at the end of his life, he says, I fought the fight, I fought the good fight, I've finished the course, I've kept the faith, meaning that he felt that at that time in his life that he had done everything that he could do in order to maximize his calling or his giftedness in his life. And I think sometimes you and I come through situations in our lives that we don't really think about the impact of what we're doing today and how it's going to impact us tomorrow. My question to you today during the course of the show is what are you going to be known for? What is it that people are going to look back when you're long gone and wonder, what they did, how they did it, why they did it, and if your name is going to just fade into history instead of being brought up like we read in books and see in movies of people that are talked about for decades, maybe hundreds of years, thousands of years in some cases, long after they're gone. John Maxwell said one time, live the legacy you want to leave. Again, John Maxwell, live the legacy you want to leave. Think about that a minute. Every single day, every step you take, every decision you make, every word you speak, every interaction you have or choose not to have impacts the legacy that you're going to leave either by default or on purpose. Now, Dr. Anthony Campolo, he did a study with 50 people over the age of 95, and they were asked one question. They said, if you could live your life over again, what would you do differently? So this study says that this open-ended question was met with several answers. Let me just share a few of those answers. The first one is, if I had to do it over again, I would reflect more. I would look back at my life more. Number two, if I had to do it over again, I would risk more. That is to pull ourselves out of that comfort zone that's so easy to get entangled in. Number three, if I had to do it over again, I would do more things that would live on long after I'm gone. Think about that last one. The things that you and I are afraid to do will not impact people in a way that maybe we should be impacting people because we're afraid to do them. Let me say it a different way. How many times has fear stopped you in your tracks from doing extraordinary things that you knew that you should be doing, but fear was such an element in your life that you couldn't see past that fear? There's times when you and I go through life and it's not so difficult to get caught up in your own doubts, to get caught up in your own struggles, to get annoyed by people who don't think that you have what you need to have in you to do these great things. In fact, Jesus in the Bible, he knew that his time was short. He knew that he had a certain amount of time to do what he needed to do. So his sense of urgency was very high. Think about that in your own life. If you knew the date that you were going to die, wouldn't your sense of urgency be high? How many folks have you known who have passed away suddenly with work unfinished? Everybody that has died suddenly had work unfinished. So what if you and I lived our lives with the understanding that today could be our last day, so that we should, that sounds weird, I'm sure, that we should maximize every moment, every hour, every second of every day, not only for ourselves, but for the benefit of other people? And there's times when you and I can either choose to ignore the latent gifts in us, or the latent callings, if you want to use that term, or the mission in life that maybe we should be trying to accomplish. There's an ancient story of these warriors that were sent out to see if this new territory was able to be achieved, to be overcome, for them to move in. So they were gone for about 40 days. There was about a dozen of them or so, and they came back, and 85% of them said there is no way that we could take this territory, because the people that are there are way stronger than us, way smarter than us. Man, their towns and their cities have these high walls, and their armies are much stronger than us. But there were just two guys or so that stood up and said, you know what, how can we not take it down? Because it has all this good stuff in it, and it wouldn't be too difficult for us to do it if we put our heads together. That's my paraphrase. Well, you know what happened? They had this meeting in front of the whole crowd, in front of the group of people that were there, several hundred people. What ideas do you think that the crowd heard? Well, the story says that the crowd heard the negative story, started to panic, started to say, there is no way we can do this. So they believed the report of the negative people and ignored the report of those couple that saw an opportunity. That is human nature for most people. They look at the glass as half empty, and they realize that, you know what, I can't overcome it because it's half empty. But then there's a minority of people that says, you know what, the glass is half full. In fact, it's almost overflowing. I think you and I, maybe not you, I know I do. I struggle with that. And I think some people you know struggle with, is the glass half empty or is the glass half full? You and I have to take a chance sometimes, I think, in looking at that glass from maybe both angles to say, you know what, I have an opportunity here. I can choose to look at this glass as half empty, or I can choose to look at this glass as half full. So we think about these guys who came back to this leader. In fact, the leader was well known in the area, of the people that decided, you know what, we can't do this. We cannot overcome this difficulty. So if you look at these two people, both of these guys were warriors. They had respect for their leader. They saw the glass as half full. They saw what opportunities were there and kind of devalued the struggles or the challenges at the time. I think if you and I look at it, it's kind of sort of the same way, that we often make, what's the old saying, we make mountains out of molehills. Yeah, that's kind of tough to hear, that we look at stuff going on in our life and we make something that's relatively small to be so big that we can't do it, whether it's in school or whether it's at work or a relationship. We say, we can't do this because, when it's in reality, you don't want it bad enough. I can remember when I wanted to pass my driving test, when I was a teenager. Man, I wanted to drive so bad. I wanted to go to work. I was working full time at 17 or so years old, full time. I wanted I was 2 o'clock to 10 o'clock at night. Full-time job. I've been working ever since. The point being is I wanted it so bad I was going to find a way to get it done. So I applied, talked to people. And I was still a teenager at the time. But I knew that people knew people who knew people who knew people. So if you and I were to leverage people in a good way, not use people by any stretch, but leverage people in a way that can be a blessing to them and to be a blessing to you, then there's nothing wrong with that at all. I think sometimes you and I have ignored the little hunches. You know, those ideas or those thoughts that come into your head and said, you know what, maybe if I tried this, this might happen. But we allow the doubt, the fear, the intimidation with some of us. I'd say half the public, half the people watching this show are generally speaking fearful people. They think that they cannot accomplish certain things, or they think that they're not qualified to do certain things, when you're just as qualified as the next person. You're just as coachable as the next person. You're just as smart as the next person. But the next person steps up and does what's uncomfortable consistently, and maybe that's a struggle that you may have. That's a struggle that I've had for a very, very long time. You know, you have to stop and think that your impact and my impact happens primarily due to the relationships that we have with other people. Because not a whole lot is changed in your life and my life without the impact of other people. And that starts with a foundation of trust. Yeah. In fact, there's a book that was written a few years back that I've read a couple times by Stephen M.R. Covey. It's called The Speed of Trust. Let me kind of share just a little piece of that book. He says, simply put, trust means confidence. The opposite of trust is distrust or suspicion. Two observations here. If you and I don't follow the example of other people who've been there and done that and overcome their struggles, then you know what? Good things are not going to happen for you. And if you and I are not able to attract the right people into our lives by our character, then we're not going to be able to learn from people that have achieved great things. Stephen Covey goes on to say, it defines the 5 levels or contexts in which we establish trust. It also forms the structure for understanding and makes trust actionable, he says. The first wave is called self-trust, which he says that the key principle underlying this wave is credibility. In business, I cannot tell you how many times when I catch people in one lie, I know that there is more under that cover, or more behind that person that meets the eye. Because if they're going to lie once about something so stupid, they're going to lie and do some things that are not ethical and not good for business. So again, self-trust is really important. That second wave is relationship trust. He says that the key principle underlying this wave is consistent behavior. You know, people judge you, believe it or not, based on what you do, not always what you say. Think about that a minute. Let me say it again. People judge you based on what you do, not only what you say. He says the third wave is organizational trust. The key principle underlying this wave, he says, is alignment. It helps leaders create structures and systems and symbols of organizational trust. He says the fourth wave is market trust. The underlying principle behind this wave is reputation. Stop and think about that a minute. How do people judge you consistently? They judge you based on, like I said before, what you do and not what you say, and that's called reputation. People know in business that they can trust me with anything. In fact, I'm so fanatical about it that when people who are part of another team email me, I carbon copy their leader in every email because I want to make sure that what I'm doing is transparent on both sides, because it's really important for the people who place their trust in me to know, at least in my mind, on paper, that I have their best interest at heart, and I'm going to make sure they see that I have their best interest at heart by confirming and verifying and letting them see through everything that I'm doing to help members of their team. And then he says the fifth wave is societal trust. This principle underlying this wave is contribution. That is how you, or if you, contribute to the benefit of other people in your life. So he says, understanding these waves will enable you to see and speak and behave in ways that establish trust, and allowing you to become a leader that gets results by inspiring trust in others. I'll be a little more transparent. There are people in your life, and certainly in my life, that will try to portray an image of transparency. They're going to try to put an image out there of trustworthiness. But sometimes when you look under the covers, under the layers of what they say versus what they do, you're going to see, if you pay attention closely enough, that maybe their intentions are not always pure. And for me, the longer I live, the more I'm developing a habit of parting ways with these people, because life is too short to be, around people that, frankly, are trying to take advantage of you. So you and I have a tendency maybe to ignore the actions of other people, to ignore the words of other people, and to ignore the reputations of other people. And then we eventually go down the road with these people that lead nowhere. So that's not what I want you to do here today. So Stephen Covey goes on to say that we need to have straight talk, that we have to communicate early so there's no misunderstanding. How many times have you been at work or with your family that somebody didn't quite hear something correctly or didn't hear it at all, or maybe it was mistranslated or misunderstood, so they're thinking for a period of time that they should be doing this when in fact they should be doing that because it was miscommunication? And then we're challenged, Covey says, that sometimes we need to show respect before respect is given. I see that a lot. I've been, like I said before, in business for a long time. And it seems that, not always, but it seems that those who show respect get respect. Let me say it again. Those who show respect get respect. Not always, but much of the time. And then you look at situations where people don't give respect. They expect respect, but they're not willing to give respect. That's probably a whole new conversation for a whole new show. But think about that in your own life. You look at people around you, whether it's at work or whether it's at home or in the neighborhood or at social events, and you wonder why these people are so nasty to you when, in fact, the actions that you render to them, whether it's words or attitudes or body language, is not in a very respectful tone. Let me give you another story. Years ago, my office was transferred to another office 20 minutes or so away from where I was at. And I walked into this office, and I thought the woman that was working there was I'll be polite, was not very kind. She looked a certain way. I judged her based on her looks. I assumed that she had this way about her. And it took me about, I can't remember exactly, but maybe a week or two to realize that my entire assumption, my entire judgment on this woman was completely wrong. I thought that she was nasty and arrogant. I thought that she had a chip on her shoulder. I thought she was nasty. I thought she was mean, but in fact, she was the sweetest human being that worked in that office. She'd bend over backwards to help. She'd laugh and cut up with you and just really do anything you needed her to do. But I judged her based on an observation that was not accurate. And I wonder if you and I have done the same thing. We have maybe ignored people that can help us tremendously in our lives because they look a certain way, or they sound a certain way, or maybe we can't understand where they're coming from, or maybe they live in a zip code that you certainly wouldn't want to choose to live into that zip code or go into that neighborhood. But in fact, those people may have more smarts than maybe you and I both have combined, and they could teach us a thing or two about life. What I'm saying is maybe we need to take the judgmental eyes off of some people. I'm not suggesting that everybody has our best intentions at heart. That's certainly not the case. But if you do your homework long enough and hard enough, you're going to see pretty quickly if the person has ethics and morals that they truly want to help you or not. I can remember, I've been in the insurance business for almost 29 years now, and there have been many homes that I'm deciding if I want to be totally blunt, but I've been in many homes where the seniors, 70, 80-year-olds, 85-year-olds, would not look me in the eye because they were raised not to look at a white man in their eyes. When I'm in their house, I'm the student. Yeah, I'm the insurance guy, but they're, what, twice as old as I am? 3 times as old as I am at the time? So how dare I look down upon them? I've never looked down at them because they've been around longer than me. They know obviously just by breathing longer than me, they know more than me. So I wonder how many times you and I haven't looked at people in a certain way that maybe isn't very accurate. So you and I need to maybe create a level of transparency with people around us and set systems in place that can confirm that transparency. I have a paperweight on our desk or at my desk at home. And it was a quote, it's a Russian quote that Ronald Reagan borrowed that says, "Trust but verify." And the older I get, I trust less often, but I verify a whole lot more. I do a lot more homework on a person because, again, some people come at you in a certain way, but if you dig deeper, in fact, you don't even have to dig too deep, you can see what their intentions really, really are. So you need to consistently improve and learning and maybe hang around with people who know more than you. And sometimes that can be really intimidating. And frankly, it can be time consuming because you have to place yourself in a situation where you're going to give worth, you're going to give value is a better word. You're going to give value to the person to whom you want to learn from. Because these other people are busy. You know, they have businesses to run, they have families, and why would they want to hang around people who aren't trying and are not doing things? We have people that we work with and have worked with for a long time that they have no willpower to do better, but you know, they just don't. They have the skill. They have every piece of skill that you need to excel in this particular area, but they have no willpower. But then you have people with a lot of willpower that really want to do well, but the skill sets they need adjusted. So what should the good leader do? They should work with the people that have the willpower more so than the people who don't have the willpower, because there's nothing I can do for you if you don't have the willpower, nor can you do it for me. I mean, I have no desire to learn how to fix a car. Zero. No desire. So you can have all the desire you want to help me. You can really want to teach me this. I'm not interested. I don't want to learn about higher math. I have no desire to learn about higher math. My brain would probably shatter. That's not how I'm wired. I have no desire. But if you want to talk to me about leadership and teach me about management and other areas of life that I'm passionate about, I am all ears. So maybe there's a story in there somewhere that maybe you and I need to find people that we can coach that are hungry in areas where you're an expert in. And I'm not talking you have to have a master's degree or a doctorate degree in anything, but you have a skill set. And then those people can learn from you, and then hopefully they will leverage what they learned from you in order to pass that on to other people. In fact, there's somebody, I can't remember who said it, but I think you've heard it before, that we should listen twice as much as we talk. We have 2 ears and 1 mouth, at least most of us do. So maybe we need to pay attention more. We need to observe more and listen more and read more and do more observing and gathering information so that we can leverage it. If there's one big downfall in America, in my opinion, in our culture, is that people have stopped learning after school. That is, once they get through high school or college, they stop learning. They choose to not learn anymore. Now, that's a huge mistake, because if you consistently learn day after day, whether it's reading books, getting books from, I'm not saying you even have to buy the books. Go to the library and get them. You can download them sometimes online. You can borrow them. You can read summaries of books. But you need to keep studying. You need to keep mastering information if, in fact, you really want to live a life and to maximize your life sentence where you're gonna have an impact on the world. That's what I'm trying to get through today, is that if you do some of these things I've shared here, that you can have an impact on the world that is pretty extraordinary. Now, I'm not talking you need to be an inventor, or you need to build a rocket ship, or you need to be a Bill Gates or anybody else, Steve Jobs. But I'm saying that you can impact your life in a way consistently that at the end of your life sentence is going to mean something. That your life will be changed as a result of what you start doing today, which then impacts the people around you as a result of what you start doing today. So start developing yourself, start investing in yourself, and watch your life change in such a way that it will blow your mind. My name is John Carver, and I really appreciate you watching the show. Thanks so much.